Everybody, and welcome to the Rock Pile. Tonight, I bring the guys back for another episode of the No Huddle Podcast. If you're following tonight on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe. If you're following on Facebook, if you're following on LinkedIn, if you have any comments, questions for the group tonight, the panel, put them in the comment box. I'll try to pull as many over as I can. So without further ado, let's get these guys on panel here. There's Coach DeCola. There's Coach Medicis. We got Coach Briggs filling in tonight. Coach, good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
And we got this guy from C-Bus who I'm going to give the business to a little bit tonight.
I can't wait.
I can't wait to talk about the Buckeyes tonight. So, guys, good to have you. I got the Piznat gave me his picks. He only had a couple winners from last week. So, at the end, I told him I'll read them off. Maybe he'll have a better week. So guys, I want to kick this thing off. We'll go around the horn. We'll just kind of do some opening statements. And C-Bus, Nick, I'll start with you. What do you got for us to start tonight?
So I thought, what a wacky week 3 last week, right? Just a lot of fun. I thought the Penn State-Auburn game, good environment for college football. As we all know, the whiteout is an absolute blast. Alabama, Florida going toe-to-toe. So just super pumped. Felt like college football. We've been in a great stretch here. First 3 weeks to kick off the season. This week looks like a little bit of a downward slate, but in general, I thought just upsets and really good football we've had the first 3 weeks, and last week was no different.
Yeah, no, for sure. Coach Briggs, what do you got?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I kind of agree with Nick. There was a lot of surprises, a lot of excitement, a lot of upsets. A couple teams in particular surprised me, which I think we're going to talk about later in the show. But yeah, it was a good week of overall football.
And I'll just say this. I thought that, and I know we'll get into this tonight, Penn State a year ago started off 0-5, in the Big Ten and conference play, and then Michigan off to the 3-0 start. And I know C-Bus, Nick, you're going to give me the business, say they haven't beaten anybody yet, which they haven't, but we'll get into that. And then one of the questions I'll have for you guys as we get going, it's been talked about, right? As of right now, I think the Big Ten might be better than the SEC top to bottom. So we'll see how it plays out. But right now, I'm giving the edge to the Big Ten through 3 weeks. Medicis, what do you got?
Oh, man. My whole thought was just derailed when you just said the Big Ten top to bottom was better than the SEC. But as
of right now, through 3 weeks.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll let that slide again. But I just want to real quick talk about the success of Michigan State. I know we got a Michigan guy here. We got an Ohio State guy, but nobody's really talking about Mel Tucker going on the road twice and beating a good Northwestern team and then going down to Miami. Miami was really hyped up early on. They got Derek King down there, and they beat up on a good Miami team last week. So there are some good teams in the Big Ten. They are not the SEC, and I'll stop you right there.
All right. Coach DeCola, what do you got?
Yeah, week 3 and 2, you saw some teams turn it around, especially like a team like North Carolina get whooped the first game, then turn around, and now the quarterback, he's possible Heisman, into the running with that. And Florida played a great game and showed off that they can hang with the big boys. And I think you're seeing a lot of teams that are very close together, that it's going to be a tight race all the year. Clemson and Ohio State having the hiccups with the one loss, but easily they could run the table. But some of these teams jumping up, Ole Miss, BYU, all these teams that are undefeated, that, how long can they sustain that? And will those Clemsons and Ohio States and teams that had the one loss, are they in panic mode maybe?
Yeah, and I want to start with that because I had surprise teams, and Medicis, you were talking about Michigan State. And listen, I don't disagree with you one bit that Michigan State 3 wins. But, think of it this way. They won at Northwestern, who Northwestern hasn't looked very good through 3 weeks. They beat Youngstown State, a Division I AA team. And to be honest with you, the hype for Miami to start the year, Miami was preseason ranked. But after watching them the last 2 weeks, I don't know how good Miami is. What I'm impressed with the most about Michigan State is Kenneth Walker, the running back's over 500 yards. He's from Wake Forest, and they actually have a quarterback that can throw the ball too. And Peyton Thorne, he hasn't turned the ball over yet. Mel Tucker's a good football coach. I think he got a raw deal at Colorado. This was a bigger job for him. I think the culture's changed at Michigan State, but we'll see if they can keep it going. C-Bus, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm in on Michigan State. I'm with Medices here. I'm with you. I mean, of course, I don't want to crown anybody after 3 weeks, but what I really like about Michigan State is they are just physical up front, both lines. I think they've given up. A whopping, maybe 17 points or 21 points all season so far. Competition has not been great. But, what a job Mel Tucker's already done. There was a lot of question marks last year. They looked really, really bad. Looked really, really bad last year. So super, super on the train of Michigan State. I think they're ripe for the picking of that program to really be turned around. And Miami, I'll say this about the Hurricanes. It feels like we've had this conversation about them for the last 4 years. Don't they get the preseason hype every year? This is the year they restore the prominence. They have the turnover chain. They do this, they do that, and they really look like an average football team.
Coach Briggs, now we got Nick from C-Bus is a Buckeye. I'm a Wolverine. Jake's Clemson. Medices is Syracuse. Who's your college team?
My college team is Syracuse also. So,
all right.
Yeah. It's been rough, though.
Strength in numbers.
Well, this week will be a big test for them against a good Liberty team coming into the Dome. So we'll see if they can get it turned around. But, Coach Briggs, do you have a surprise team so far through 3 weeks?
My surprise team once it was Michigan State also with Peyton Thorne at quarterback. He's a sophomore. He's passed 48 for 77. He's got 726 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And I think with him at the helm, they have a contention to rank up in the higher ranks.
I got one more surprise team. I'm sorry, I forgot we were talking surprise teams. Arkansas.
Yeah.
Team that 2018, 2019, the dregs of the SEC, right? Off to a 3-0 start. They were kind of eerily similar to Penn State in 2020, right? Got off to a terrible start and kind of that COVID run, but really kind of got hot late. Was able to salvage the season. They look formidable. They beat Georgia Southern last week, relatively easy layup, but that was a game that they stubbed their toe on multiple years in a row. And they got a really exciting matchup, I think, with A&M this week, right? I think that's going to be one that I got my eye on early to see if Arkansas can hang with them. But definitely a surprise for me after writing them off per se.
Medices was Michigan State one of your surprise teams?
It was, but I want to talk about Oregon a little bit because we talked about them week 1 and we said, you know what, typical Oregon. They play Fresno State week 1. They kind of struggled to a victory. Well, 2 weeks later, Fresno State beat a very good UCLA team where Chip Kelly was starting to turn the page. Oregon goes into Ohio State, beats the Buckeyes, and again, playing without 2 starters. And I know it's a young Buckeye team, and you play them in week 2, it's going to be a different team at week 10, 11, 12. But to go into Columbus and get a victory, it is huge. And, for the last couple of years, it's always been Oregon's a top 10 team and the Pac-12 is really weak. And, as soon as they lose, the Pac-12 is basically out for the semis. The Pac-12 has a legit team that could at least make the semis and maybe make some noise.
Jake, how about you?
I'm about to go with BYU. They played the first 3 games, beat Arizona, which Arizona's not the same, but beating a Utah, their rivalry game, that could go anyway. And then also beating Arizona State. That's 2 back-to-back ranked opponents. And also, hey, they lost their quarterback last year, So they're coming in with the new quarterback and stuff. And, I think they're surprising a lot of teams with that and having that mentality, hey, we're going to show up and play anyone, anywhere like that they had a couple of years ago, or not like a couple of years, last season. And, they went from unranked to now they're up in the top 25.
Yeah, I had Michigan State. I know we've talked about them, but the one thing I've been impressed with about Michigan State is not only just Kenneth Walker and Peyton Thorne, but they're 20th in the country. I know it's early, but they're running the football. They're averaging 263 yards. I love Mel Tucker. I think he's a great football coach. The other one I wanted to mention, guys, is Iowa. I know Iowa's coming in. They're ranked 5th right now. The only thing I'm worried about with Iowa is if they get into a shootout down the stretch with a team that's going to put 30, 40 points on the board. I don't know if Iowa's offense, Kirk Ferentz and that staff is phenomenal, but they always run the football. They're big up front. I just don't know if they're going to have the firepower long term. And now you're going to start to see some of the schedule in the Big Ten. They're going to start playing each other. And the other one I had, and you guys know I ride Dave Clawson, they're on pace right now. If they can beat Virginia this week, they could be 8-0 heading into North Carolina and Clemson. And I'll say this much, guys. If I'm Florida State right now, I call Dion Sanders and I say, are you interested in this job? I love Mike Norvell. I think Mike Norvell is a really good football coach, but you can't lose to Jackson State or Jacksonville State. You can't lose to them. That program has just fell over backwards since Bobby Bowden and, of course, since Jimbo Fisher left. So those are my teams. But how long do you go with Mike Norvell? You can't lose those games, especially you can't lose in Tallahassee.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State reminds me a little bit of where USC was, and I know we're going to talk about them and the coaches a little bit before Clay Helton got there, right? Just total turbulence. They're not recruiting well. Their facilities are behind. If you look at some of their supporting staff, they have a lot of gaps there. They're getting passed by right now in a lot of areas, and they need a stabling influence. I don't know if Dion's the guy. Rocky probably help on the recruiting trail for sure. At least early on, but I don't know. They fired Taggart, right? He was 3-12 or something to that degree. I think when they got rid of him, and Norvell's 3-9. So it's not like there's not a ton of difference there. His seat is definitely warm. And there's got to be panic if I'm Florida State.
Well, the one thing that Florida State's kind of caught, because they're still paying Willie Taggart I think $4.2 million to not coach there. They're paying Mike Norvell $3.7 million to coach there. You can't buy him out and now pay two coaches and then have to pay big money to get a Dion Sanders or whoever the next coach may be. Now you're basically paying three coaches. So until those other contracts kind of run out and the buyouts are done, you're going to have to, bide your time. Kind of like what we talked about with Syracuse situation. You're not in a financial state where you can pay 2-3 coaches at the same time. You're going to have to, hopefully give it some time, maybe wait the season and see how things go before you really make a move.
Well, I think for me, though, I don't disagree with what you're saying, Nick, but I think it's going to be very similar to how long do the boosters go? I mean, USC made the decision on Clay Helton, who the players love him. He's a player's coach. I still think Clay Helton's a good football coach. But USC, when you lose to Stanford, who I think USC was a 2-touchdown favorite, you can't lose those games. USC, and the thing that I'll ask you guys is USC – going into the USC job here, is USC the same job as it was 20 years ago? 20 years ago when we were growing up, USC was always in the Rose Bowl. That was always the big thing, the John Robinson and days, the Pete Carroll days and Reggie Bush. Nowadays, is it a primetime job? Is it a top 5 job in college football anymore? I don't think it's the same job as it was years ago.
I think being out there at the West Coast, they're still, they're on the recruiting trail of being, their name is always with one of those top guys out there, because everyone wants to go out to California. They have all the famous alums. They got Snoop Dogg on the sideline, now with this NIL, who knows, they could have more boosters and everything. I think if they get the right guy in that will buy into that, kind of like Pete Carroll did, buy into that Hollywood life when all those guys are around, I could see that program being turned around very easily than compared to like a Florida State. Florida State, you got Florida's doing great down there. Even Miami kind of turned around, but everyone's down there. Where West Coast, you're kind of just battling Oregon, USC, and once in a while here and there, UCLA is on their way up, but they don't have much guys to go against out there.
I think the only counter I would make to that, Jake, is I think the California pull, Rock, when you're talking John Robinson, those days, it was legit back then, but college football is so readily accessed, available now. You don't need the West Coast isn't a pull, right? These kids want to go where the winning is happening. And I mean, you can look at Alabama's roster, look at Ohio State's roster, look at Clemson's roster. They pull a ton of California kids, right? And it's not just hey, I want to be out in Cali, but the other piece is these kids don't want to go to the Pac-12 where their games are on at 10 o'clock at night, and 3/4 of the country aren't watching them, right? The Pac-12 has the reason that we've looked at them as they're a Power 5, but they're on the lower tier of that Power 5 is the competition isn't there, and that's hurting USC. And the recruiting trail is so much more open now for these kids to go anywhere where the winning is taking place. I think Helton laid the foundation for them. I thought he was the stabling influence, and I'm with you, Rock. I think he's a good football coach. I don't know if he's I don't know if he if he's a top 10, top 15 and go to a big school like the USC. But I think he's going to be a good coach, and he can stay a good coach in the game. But I think they need an off the radar hire. And I'll make an Ohio State comparison, right? Because it's near and dear to me. They need a Jim Tressel hire. They need somebody that is going to, Jake, to piggyback a little bit, is going to embrace their culture, right? It is going to try to restore them, but it's going to be a little bit off the beaten path. That's going to come in with expectations. It's USC, but they're not this Dion Sanders, Florida State comparison, right, Rock? Where it's, oh my gosh, they're going to come in and they're going to win right away, right? They need somebody that's going to come in there and they're going to continue to build on what Helton laid the foundation for. But I want somebody off the beaten path. I want a name maybe that we're not thinking of. We'll talk a little bit about names, I'm sure, here in a minute. But that's kind of my initial take on USC.
Coach Briggs, who you got? Who do you think would be a good fit at USC?
Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City offensive coordinator.
Great name.
I like that.
Yeah, and he's from Southern California. I think he'd be a perfect fit.
I hope
there's something to get recruits' attention, right?
Yeah, I hope
bring in somebody coaching Patty Mahomes, right? Bring patty cakes around. Yeah, I like that.
He should have got a shot. He should have got a shot in the NFL. It's a shame that he still hasn't got a head coaching job. I think he'd be great in college. I think he'd relate well to the kids. I actually had a bunch of names down, and I'll let you guys go through who you think. But I think one name for me that stands out, and I'm not sure this would happen, is I think Bill O'Brien would be a good fit for this job. The job that Bill O'Brien did when the Penn State program was basically in the toilet, when he took over that job and kept them afloat, and they were competitive with a very, very, very limited resources roster, I think he'd be a good fit there. Medicis, who do you think?
I actually had Bieniemy and Bill O'Brien as my 1 and 2. But going off of what Jake said, imagine Dion Sanders going to USC and coming in with this young, hey, we're in Hollywood, we're in California, celebrities are coming to practice. I'm going to have a live series that follows us around. You can make money while you're here. I'm young. I'm going to embrace it. Somebody like that. I mean, Nick talked about someone off the beaten path, but we talked Dion Sanders to Florida State. What about Dion Sanders to Hollywood, to USC? He's got all those connections. He's an NFL guy. He can bring solid NFL coaches, former players, to be on the sidelines. He'd get a great staff. He can recruit. He can talk. He talks a great game. I think that would be a home run hire.
Jake, who do you think?
Yeah, my first one, I was thinking Dion Sanders. Same thing with Nick, that bringing that impact and getting that excitement out there with Dion, I think could help change that program.
But do we know if he can coach? I mean, I'm hear what you guys are saying, but the guy's coached 3 games in his entire career, and we're going to give him a top. I mean, we can argue maybe he's not a top 5 job anymore, but I think we can all probably agree it's at least a top 15, top 20
you want to go with
job.
Eddie George then? He beat Eddie George.
Yeah, but
I don't want Eddie either. I'm just saying. I mean, if you're USC, I guess to me that's a high risk, high reward, hire. But man, if you swing and miss on that, and he turns out not to be a good X and O coach, you're right back to square one, and you're erasing the foundation that Helton laid previously, right?
Yeah. I think one of my dark horses, not going off that topic, but is one of and Rock will probably smile at this. Moorhead from Oregon. If they start doing good, West Coast, out there, he's shown to do well coming to, with the Penn State and been bounced around, and it's a possible second chance at being a head coach, could do something out there and shown that he can do it. He can run a pretty good offense out there.
And I had it flipped, Jake. I actually like that because I actually said Mario Cristobal, I think, would be a really good hire as well. And I said if Cristobal ever got the USC job, I think Joe Moorhead would have a really good chance to get the Oregon job, which I think is a really good fit for Joe Moorhead. But, of course, everybody's mentioned James Franklin. I still like Bill O'Brien, but here's another name I'll throw out there, and I don't know if this is going to happen at all. What about Chris Peterson, the former Boise State coach, was at Washington, took Boise State and let him come out. He's only been on a retire. He's still on some TV networks doing some college football. I loved him as a coach. Matt Campbell's not going to USC.
Franklin's not going.
I don't think Luke Fickell's going to leave for that job either.
Not going West Coast. But what about the two names I had was Jeff Hafley in BC. Good young coach. Defensive minded. I think has the ability to put together a good staff. Has recruited really well at BC. Lost his quarterback last week, but I think has them pointed in the right direction. The other name was other coach I was looking at was BYU's head coach. I don't know if he'd ever leave BYU, but I think we talked about him kind of to lead it off, right? I mean, look at all those players. Jake, you mentioned obviously Zach Wilson being gone, but they lost a ton more than Wilson on that team. I think they talked about that they were ranked dead last in the nation for return production to come into the year, and then they're off to a 3-0 start. And let's be real, the 3 wins are against the Pac-12 West, right? So I mean that fits the mold. So that was an off the radar name. I think when I talk about maybe somebody a little bit off the radar there, those would be two names that came to my mind.
Do they need a home run hire though? Do they need an Urban Meyer? Do they need a Bob Stoops? Do they need a big time coach, a name that's got head coaching experience, or do you go with somebody who doesn't really have the head coach, maybe the hot coordinator from the NFL, like Coach Briggs? I think Eric Bieniemy would be fantastic of a hire, the big name. He'd be able to recruit. It's all about recruiting. You got to bring in a guy that that's going to recruit. I think Mario Cristobal can come in and recruit. I don't know if. Again, would you leave Oregon for the USC job the way he's got Oregon playing? I
feels like you're going backwards, right? You're going to the same conference.
I think
Oregon's a better job.
Right now.
You don't leave Oregon for USC.
Yeah, I mean, and Cristobal's just put in the work at Oregon to get he's got his guys in there running his scheme, right? That to me seems like a backward step for him. I'm staying in conference to go do what? To go rebuild USC, to do the work that I just did in Oregon. It just seems, I'm with you, Rock. I think he'd be a good hire. I just don't think there's any. I can't see any traction coming there.
Rock, and you just talked about recruiting and how important that is. When you have Nike in your backyard and you can have any uniform in creation, how kids are now that you see those bright colors, you see those Oregon. How big a deal was it to see which Oregon uniforms they're coming out with this week? So to have that in your backyard, you're a top 10 at preseason every year. Why would you leave that to go to USC where maybe you can build something when you already have something built and established in Oregon?
Well, it's kind of funny. You guys talked about this too, but now with these athletes making money, you got a better chance to go make money at USC than you do down at Oregon. Right? You're down in Southern California.
You would think so. Although I think your talent is dictating, at least the way it's set up right now, right? Your showcase and how well you're playing is creating those dollars and cents in those programs. So I tend to agree with you. There's more money obviously in LA, but the tech sector is not too far. You got plenty of big name businesses out there. In the West Coast.
Kelly will jump over from UCLA to USC thinking, hey, this might be a better opportunity for me. And, been a Pac-12 guy and shown that he kind of got UCLA turned around a little bit or playing better at least. But, looking at, hey, I can
UCLA would never forgive him if he did that. I'll tell you that much. Have fun with that game in the Rose Bowl.
If UCLA beats USC, we keep talking about all this money they can make at USC. They're all going to go – all that money is going to go to UCLA, and you're going to see that big shift that UCLA will be that LA team, and all of a sudden SC kind of takes a step back.
Interesting.
we've talked about Matt Campbell for the last year and a half, and I know we talked about him on this show, the first episode, and it's so much different when you come in preseason top 5, top 10 with all the pressure. They lose to Iowa week 1. Yeah, they rebounded the last couple weeks, but the prior years when Iowa State hasn't been ranked, they haven't had any pressure. He's had a lot of big wins. I still think they're going to be pretty good in the Big 12. I don't know if they'll beat Oklahoma, but they're going to be competitive. Do you think he would start to think about maybe making that jump? I mean, again, USC I think is a better job than Iowa State. You think his name, you think he could think about that, making that move?
I would think so, because, I mean, you can only be the hottest coach for so long. His name keeps getting thrown in if he doesn't jump ship. I mean, look at what's his name at Northwestern, Pat, that couple years, every year it's like, oh, he's going. Nope, he's staying. And now it's like you ride the wave, so maybe he jumps ship this time.
Yeah, I think you got to ride it when it's hot, right? If he had 2-3 really good years, all the hype. He said he likes it in Ames, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting because there'll be a lot more bigger jobs that'll come up at the end of the year. And, I mean, who knows? The Miami job, Manny Diaz may not survive there. Florida State, he may not survive. So there's going to be big-time jobs. But, guys –
I will say, just to wrap that up, Brock, I thought the one thing USC did well, in my opinion, is to make the move when they did. I think that gives them the entire regular season to start watching other coaches, to start scouting other coaches. You're not trying to shotgun this approach at the end of the year when there's the whole coaching carousel going. You're already aligned. You're starting to put together your list. The AD starting to firm up and decide who are the real candidates. He has the entire regular season to do this, and then you expect them to move relatively fast when the regular season is over. So I'll give them credit for recognizing, hey, if Helton's not our guy, let's cut these ties now. And let's start to grease these skids. I think gives them a tremendous leg up over, like you said, maybe Florida State or Miami, who probably will make a move at the end of the year.
But would they have made that cut if they won? Or were they waiting for the first loss? I was wondering. It's like, was their mindset before the season? It's like, all right, why don't we see turmoil? That's why I was interesting with that. I mean, I think it's a good move at this time, but were they waiting for that first loss? What if they were 6-0?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. That's the dice roll.
Yeah,
totally agree.
Let me throw this out and then we'll move on, guys, because I know there's a lot of teams right now that are in panic mode. I still think it's too early. Any chance, C-Bus, your guy Urban Meyer makes the move from Jacksonville?
Absolutely 0.0.
You don't think so?
No,
not a chance.
No, nope. No, I think he really wants to give. He's going to give the NFL a shot. I'll tell you, he's probably going to give the NFL 2 seasons, and see where he's at and where he's measuring. But no, I don't. I think he's committed to trying to grow something down there to try to build that franchise back with Lawrence and a younger squad. I think he's recognizing what we all thought he was going to recognize, and that the NFL is a different beast than talking to these players and things that worked in college and some of the things that, we applauded him for in Columbus with losing your black stripe and earning your jersey number and things like that. He tried to pull that stuff in Jacksonville, during the first training camp. And those pros looked at him, a couple different ways, sideways, because they're professionals, right? So I think he has to learn, but I think he's a challenge-oriented coach, and I don't think he's backing down to go run to USC.
I said there were 2 jobs Urban Meyer would leave for. One was USC, the other one was Notre Dame, and I heard a rumor this week too. What about I'm drawing a blank. Notre Dame, Brian Kelly. What about Brian Kelly to USC and Urban Meyer to Notre Dame? Not saying it's going to happen, but those were the 2 jobs I thought Urban Meyer would leave for. One of those 2. So we'll have to wait and see. Panic mode. Who's in panic mode? There's a lot of teams. Jake, Clemson hasn't looked that great, but they're still winning. The ACC isn't that strong. Any room to panic for Clemson?
No, I mean, maybe a little, because the way DJ has played. But, I think Clemson's they've been gifted two quarterbacks before him, with Watson and Trevor. Like, they were walked down on campus and ready to go. And you don't quite see that with DJ. And I think me as a Clemson, we were spoiled. with two great first-round pick quarterbacks that are already playing in the NFL and playing at a high level, DJ, it's only his 5th game, so he still has time to grow and everything. But, just watching the plays this week, they ran the ball a little bit more, which was good to see, because I think Georgia, they were afraid to run the ball with DJ, and possibly, I don't know why, to get him hurt or so, but you can see he was starting to run the ball. He needs to get better with his accuracy. He's not the best thrower right now that we were used to seeing with accuracy with the ball and the money, but, I think they're still winning. Their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games.
Coach Briggs, who do you think? Anybody on panic alert?
I had Clemson for panic alert. I don't know. I just think, they're struggling. I don't think DJ's doing the job at quarterback from what they're used to. And you know what? I agree with Jake on their defense is going to hold them in some games, but I think they have a lot to worry about.
Medicis, who do you got?
We already talked about it. I had Florida State. I mean, that program's just in shambles. Like you said, they lost to Jacksonville State, and then they turn around and they play Wake Forest and Wake Forest dominated that game. Don't get twisted. They scored a couple of touchdowns later on, but, it's a great story with Melton, but clearly he's not the high-end quarterback that Florida State had years prior. And, it's almost since Francois got hurt in that opening game against Alabama, that was like the turning point. And then since then, they've had no consistent quarterback play, and they're struggling. And I just don't see it getting better anytime soon.
C-Bus, who you got?
Well, I'll let you pick on my boys because I'm sure you will, but I'm going to go Oklahoma. I've watched them now probably 6 quarters this season. I hear that the defense is better, and I thought they look better at times. But I'll be honest, I don't like what I see offensively from them right now. They don't look very strong running the football. Lincoln Riley's offense, I'm used to watching explosive plays, and I'm used to watching them chunk plays and move the ball. They've been stopped on third down on multiple occasions that you're just not used to seeing a Lincoln Riley team go. I think it's going to help them that the Big 12 is weak, and that will probably allow them to continue to win here. But I think they're primed for an upset here. I wouldn't even put Texas past beating them, potentially again. I do not like what I see from them. They're on panic alert for me.
So I had a couple. I did have Florida State, and I just want to throw this out there. Medicis is their loss to Jacksonville State. UAB beat Jacksonville State 30-0 the following week. And again, I'm going back years ago in Florida State for the Piznat, who's the gambling guy. I remember playing tickets as a young kid, and on the far right, on the very bottom, were always the teams that were like plus 35, plus 40. They were always playing Florida State. So no matter who went into Tallahassee, whoever they were playing, they were always in the top 10 every year to start the season. Huge disappointment for me, Florida State. C-Bus, I'm going to put Ohio State, but I think they're going to get better. But here's what I'm worried about. I know that Kerry Combs last week didn't call the plays defensively for the Buckeyes. The last 3 games, here's a stat for you. They've given up 118 points. That's the first time since 1891 that the Buckeyes have given up that many. They got to figure it out defensively. I still think they'll be all right down the stretch. They got too much talent on both sides of the ball. But defensively, they got to get a lot better.
Identity crisis down here, right? I think they, they're struggling obviously on the defensive end. But I'll be honest, the linebacker play at Ohio State has been bad now for 3 years. They have not had speed at linebacker. I think Combs wanted to run a single high safety look, which, again, sounds really good when you have a Jordan Fuller or somebody like back there to play safety that can really be that quarterback of the defense. They don't have that this year. They're rotating a lot of guys that, and I want to hyper on the rotation. They played 27 players on defense last week, and against Oregon, they played 33 guys on defense against Oregon. I understand it, but I think it tells you that they don't know what they have, right? But I think it's working to their detriment. You have to let these players get into some type of rhythm and get into some type of feel. So defensively, they're in a major identity crisis. And I love Larry Johnson as a defensive line coach, but this is not the defensive line that I'm used to seeing Larry Johnson put on the field. So there's a lot of concern, from here. I will tell you right now, I have them penciled down for 2 more losses and potentially 3, based off of what I see right now. The freshman quarterback is hurt. He's dinged, been hurt since the Minnesota game. His shoulder is bothering him. Day, for whatever reason, does not want to pull that trigger and maybe sit him down for a week. They should beat up on Akron. They're a 59.5-point favorite this week. So hopefully they're able to clean it up. But Rock, I want to throw one more panic team on here while we're talking about it. How about Notre Dame? They go to the wire with Florida State. We've been bagging on Florida State this whole show. Took a miracle for them to, fought off a comeback for them to win. They struggle at their first home game against Toledo. Takes a miracle drive for them to come back and win that game. And they really look sleepy and kind of limp to a victory against another MAC school last week. They got Wisconsin this week. Jack Cohn coming back to play his former school. But Notre Dame's another school I feel like looks very much fraudulent to me. And I think the polls are starting to reflect that. They're starting to drop a little bit. But I would say from a panic perspective, if I'm a Notre Dame fan, I'm concerned.
Well, in the Notre Dame piece too, the piggyback off that, they still got to play Cincinnati. So they still got 2 really big games left. All I'm dreading is seeing if Notre Dame runs the table, nobody wants to see them in the playoff again, right? Yeah. They'll get that 4th spot. They'll play Alabama or Georgia. The first semifinals, they'll get hammered by 30. It'll be the same exact conversations we're talking about. You got to put Notre Dame in. They're 11-0. I agree. To be honest with you, I got that Notre Dame-Wisconsin game in the predictions. Yeah. Don't be surprised if Wisconsin beats them and Cincinnati beats them later in the year.
Yep, I agree.
So, Nick, the other thing, C-Bus Nick there, I was surprised you didn't have my Michigan Wolverines as a surprise being 3-0 because we said 2 weeks ago it was whether Jim Harbaugh beat Washington, and then people would have said, well, Washington's no good. They lost to 1AA Montana. But then if they were ranked and they lost, they'd say, well, Harbaugh can't win the big games. They're running the football, though, now, right?
They are definitely running the football. What they have 7 out of their 8 touchdowns last week against whoever they smacked around. I agree. I think offensively they look like they have an identity, which is more than I can say that they've looked like for a while. And I was all over the couple key injuries, especially at the wide receiver position early on to start the year. And that might have helped jumpstart the running game, right? To really kind of force their hand to go to what they're good at. They're going to have some teeth coming up into their schedule, right? So we're going to find out, how real they are. But the other thing I liked what I saw offensively from them is they're running the 3 tight end set. And I think you see Penn State doing the same thing. And that's a nightmare to cover. My coaches on the, coaches here, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think every time that I watch that, you see 3 tight ends that are able to block and get downfield. I think it keeps the defense guessing. Run pass, can't really settle into one direction of which way they might move the ball. So give Harbaugh and the staff credit. Off to a solid start. Not gonna jump over the moon because they haven't played anybody yet. No, but better. But honestly, Rock, better than they've looked the last couple of years to start the season. So that's got to count for something.
Well, I'm surprised nobody said that a surprise team right now to get off to their start was Washington. I mean, you're talking Washington was a preseason, top 15 team to start the season. And if they didn't lose the opening game to Montana, that primetime game against Michigan would have been a good win for Michigan. My only concern with Michigan right now is going to be, again, if they get into a shootout, 30, and they got to score 40 points a game. Cade McNamara hasn't had to throw the ball just yet. The defense looks better, but again, listen, they got to play Wisconsin. They got to play Michigan State. They got to play Ohio State. They got to play Penn State. So they have 4 really tough games. And I don't even think Rutgers this week's going to be a walk in the park. I think Rutgers is going to play them tough. But it's nice to see the run game and Coach Briggs and Jake, you guys are the coaches too. But it's nice to see a little creativity running the ball, the power run game out of that spread offense, because everybody always thinks you're going to go east to west and putting 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends. You can still have a power run game out of that spread offense, and he's found a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, hiring young new coaches that kind of maybe think outside the box and not, guys his age that are kind of used to one way. And he brought a whole different perspective in, and I think that's helped Harbaugh get there. And maybe the young coaches better relate with those players a little bit, that they can understand a little bit better and buy into that system a little bit more. So definitely with 3 tight ends that can move and do all that stuff, that's a lucky thing to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Luxury, right?
Yeah, very difficult to defend.
And I'm just surprised that I think the Mike McDonald hire, and again, we'll see what happens when they play some better teams, but I think the Mike McDonald hire, the defense looks a lot stronger. But again, we'll see on the back end. We're used to that Don Brown's, man coverage, can't cover anybody in space. So we'll see what happens. But so far, so good for the Maize and Blue. All right, guys, I want to hear who you guys think before we get into predictions and the pardon shots. I want to see who you guys have as your top 5 teams from after the first 3 weeks. C-Bus, who do you have?
So I got Bama 1 still. I thought they had color me a little concerned with watching Florida being able to run the football on them. Florida tackled terrible in that first quarter. And Bama's really fortunate that they did because Florida outplayed them really quarters 2, 3, and 4, I felt like. Georgia, I have 2. I thought they handled business against South Carolina, not that it's going to win you any trophies. Not sure I trust the offense yet, but that defense is lights out good. We saw it against Clemson, and after watching it now for another couple of weeks, I'm sold on them. I have Penn State as number 3. I just think 2 big wins, right? I'm not sure they're the 3rd best team in the country per se, but beating Wisconsin, great win on the road, and then beating an SEC school, albeit Auburn, who doesn't score a ton of points. But I thought Sean Clifford played the best game of his career, and finally James Franklin didn't overcoach a big game, and you could see the relief. And I think we all saw the F-bombs that he was dropping after that game on Saturday. I got Oregon as 4th. Again, I kind of like what Mediza said. I think they got to get almost extra credit. The Fresno State win looks better than we probably really thought.
Yeah.
And then anytime you come up to Columbus and you win a football game, that's not easy. That's not easy to do, along with the injuries that they experienced. I thought was a good win. And then I have Iowa 5th. Again, more or less just because where we're at week 3 in the season, right?
Yeah.
I felt like, they had the Iowa State win is more impressive than anything A&M has done, and A&M is who I have 6th, so I was really kind of tossing those 2 guys around. I'm with you, Rock. I'm not sold on the offense that Iowa has. I'm not sure that they can sustain that. But again, Big Ten East, not overly tough. They might be able to push their way through, but that's my 5.
You guys, one of my buddies messaged me on my phone, and he said, don't be surprised if USC calls Kellen Moore from Dallas to come back into college. I didn't think of Kellen Moore, so we'll see.
It's a good off the radar. It's a good off the radar hire. I like it.
Coach Briggs, who do you have in your top 5 through 3 weeks?
Yeah, number 5, I have Oklahoma. Number 4, I got Oregon. Coming in beating Ohio State, so I got them at number 4. Number 3, I got Penn State. 2 quality wins, Wisconsin and Auburn. And then they play Iowa on October 9th, so that's gonna be a big game coming up. Number 2, I have Alabama. I think after the win at Clemson, Clemson with a defensive team. I just think Georgia. I don't know if they're going to go any further than that. They always choke at the end of the year, but as of right now, I got them number 1.
Adesas, who you got?
I got Alabama 1. I think good teams find ways to win games even when they don't play well. And I think Bama came out and they played a great first quarter. And then, having a first-year quarterback under center, road game where last year, there was no fans or hardly any fans anywhere. You're putting him in a tough spot in a meaningful game early on. I thought he did enough to win the game. And you know what? We always say it there's no such thing as a bad win. So Alabama number 1, Georgia close behind at number 2. I got Oregon at 3. I think, the impressive win at Ohio State, the Fresno State win, I think that's a nice resume to start. I have Cincinnati at 4. I had them up there last week, I didn't think they played well, but again, they went on the road. They won a game. They have not lost games. So I have Cincinnati at 4, and then I have Oklahoma and Iowa kind of tied at 5th, 6th, somewhere there. I'm not sold on Oklahoma. I said that week 1. I thought they did not look impressive. They've given up a lot of points to some bad teams. Iowa, I don't know. I don't know if they can sustain it. It's almost like the Iowa State and Iowa flip-flopped, and Iowa was kind of the under-the-radar team, and now they're in that spot where they're a top 5 team. Can they hold on there? I just don't see that happening. So I got Iowa right outside that top 5.
Medices, I have a quick question. So let's talk. I want to talk about Cincinnati just a little bit. So, and I just kicking this around. If they beat Notre Dame, right, and what we said about Notre Dame, let's say Notre Dame's unbeaten when they beat them, is that enough for them to get into the college football playoff?
No.
Right? Because I'm looking at it right now, and I feel like ESPN's already trying to set this stage, right? Like they got 2 games.
They're trying to push it, absolutely.
They got 2 games they got to win. If they beat Indiana and they beat Notre Dame, then they deserve a chance to be in a playoff. And it's like, wait a minute, Indiana is not Indiana from last year. So let's not confuse that. Yeah, you can time out me, Rock. I'm just saying you're going to put them in.
Here's why I think they put them in. Here's the only reason why. If Cincinnati runs the table, based off of where they started preseason in the rankings, correct, I think they're setting them up to be in. Nick, if they were outside of the top 10, I think to start, no chance.
They would
be. I'm not. I guess, but my question, Rock, isn't will they be in? I guess my question is, do you think that they should deserve to be in? Would you take Cincinnati, looking at their schedule, knowing that the only 2 big games they had on their schedule is Indiana and Notre Dame? Would you take would you take them over a 1-loss Georgia team?
No.
Per se?
No.
Or would you take them over would you take them over a 1-loss Big Ten team, whether that's Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, whatever? I feel like they're already pushing narratives week 3 into the season. And I know we were going to talk about playoff expansion that might get pushed the next week, but it's already starting to irk me a little bit that we're already laying this foundation and we're not even out of the first month of the season.
Well, you can look at it this way. So they beat an Indiana team that came in with a lot of preseason hype. Sure. They were ranked.
And they're going to smack the first week of the season.
When they play Notre Dame, Notre Dame's going to be ranked pretty high.
They'll be 10. Right.
And Cincinnati, Christ, hasn't lost a game in 2 years.
I know. I understand. I feel like last year the argument was valid based on the COVID year, based off of what we saw with some of the other teams lost, and there wasn't it was Bama and everybody else, right? And I felt like that opened up the conversation. I feel like, hey, if we want to have that conversation in November and we got a bunch of 2-loss teams there and they're sitting there undefeated, I'm willing to have that conversation. But I don't want to push down my throat in September telling me, hey, if they beat a Notre Dame team that I've watched play 8 quarters, that I'm sitting there going, yeah, if Notre Dame played anybody, probably within the first 3 weeks, they already have 2 losses.
But Nick, who has impressed you and said, man, this is a top 5? I don't know that there's been too many teams that have really jumped out and said, hey, they're the best. Like last year, Alabama was the best team. You saw Clemson, and you said, as soon as Lawrence got back, completely different team. When Lawrence started the year, completely different team. Ohio State, head and shoulders above everyone else. You just don't have that this year. It's like you have an Iowa team that had a signature win, but it's Iowa. They always drop off somewhere. You have Penn State up there. They're in the Big Ten. I don't know. Well, Georgia, they had a big win early, but Georgia always has that week 1 tough game. Then they go to Bama, they lose. They go to LSU later on, they lose, and they're a top 8 to 12 team. You just don't have that. And then you have a Cincinnati team who, like Rock said, they haven't lost a game in a couple years. The one game they lost was so it's like, where do you put them when there's nobody else that's really jumping out and saying, we're a lot better team than Cincinnati?
That's a fair point.
Well, and I'm going to get to Jake's top 5, but the only other thing I'll add, guys, and then we got to move on, is you're going to have to take is right now your top 5 teams in the country. Is it a 1-loss? If Oregon loses, a 1-loss Oregon team out of the Pac-12, is their schedule and that win against Ohio State and Columbus better than if Cincinnati beats Notre Dame. That's what you're going to come down to, because Georgia may lose a game in the SEC. And I think I just said the SEC is always brutal. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. But good. I'm sure we'll be talking about them, Nick, probably in another few weeks.
Oh, for sure.
Jake, who's your 5?
Yeah, just going with you guys and finally getting a word in here since the two Knicks got to argue with each other. You need that mute button. No, but with Cincinnati, like they're saying, I'm with you, C. But I don't think they play anyone. They would have to show blowing out teams and not playing them close. Even that Indiana game, they were somewhat close to them until I know at the end, but they need to be blowing teams out to make it unquestionable. If they're hanging around, only winning by 17 points or so, I think it's going to be really hard for them to keep even a one loss. Let's say Georgia loses to Alabama, runs the table the rest of the way. You can't keep Georgia out and put them in over that. It's just strength of schedule. So, but my top 5, obviously I have Alabama number 1. They got to be knocked off. They're still the king. But they had a close game. My next 2, I go back and forth with Georgia and Penn State. Penn State has some great wins. Georgia has, yes, they beat Clemson, which is the top, but Penn State had 2 quality wins. So I'm almost leaning towards possibly Penn State a little bit, even going into Wisconsin the first game. So I'm going to go Penn State 2, Georgia 3, Oregon 4 with the big win. And then 5, I think it's Texas A&M. I know they had a little bit of hiccup last week, but I could still, they have a pretty good defense out there and everything. But once again, too, just like they said, Oklahoma's right there. I think if they get some things turned around, Oklahoma could shoot right up and pass a lot of those teams.
I got Alabama 1. I think we found out that I think Florida's better than what people think. I think Florida's going to have a good year in the SEC. Dan Mullins had that team ready to go. I got Georgia number 2. What's scary about Georgia, if JT Daniels can stay healthy and they can have a passing game and offense defensively, man, that defense is just a bunch of dudes all around. I got Oregon 3. I still think that Ohio State win right now out of all the teams, that's the best win in the country right now. 4, I got Penn State. Auburn, I haven't been impressed with Bo Nix since he took that job over in Auburn. I think he had so much hype coming in as a young quarterback with his dad and just a history there. Defensively, Auburn's really good. I think Auburn's still going to win some games. So I got Penn State at 4. And then 5th, I'm still going Oklahoma. I'm still going to put them there. They're kind of on my bubble. I couldn't put Iowa there yet, only because I'm still not sold on Wisconsin. I know they came in preseason. It was a big win for Penn State at Wisconsin to go into Camp Randall and win. I'm still not sold on them just yet. So I'm still going to go with Oklahoma at number 5 for me. I'm going to put my money on Lincoln Riley. See, that team's going to get better as the season goes. All right, guys, we got to do some predictions here. I got some games, and then we got to do parting shots. We'll have to do the playoff thing. We'll have to push it to the next show. So we'll go around the horn here. Number 12, Notre Dame at number 18, Wisconsin. Wisconsin's actually a 6.5-point favorite at home. C-Bus, who you got?
Give me Wisconsin. I just bagged on Notre Dame, so I'm taking Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Coach Briggs, who you got?
I got Wisconsin.
Medicis, who you got?
Wisconsin by 2 scores.
Oh, okay. Jake, who you got?
I'm going Notre Dame. He's coming back. The quarterback, he's got something to prove.
What's your dog think, Jake? That's what I want to know.
Well, how about my 2 dogs? I'll give you some. My 2 dogs are named Clemson and Carolina for North Carolina.
Oh,
all right, fair enough.
I got to get the mute button on here. I got to start using it. I'm going Notre Dame. I think they go into Camp Randall. I think they beat them. I think they covered a spread too. I think they beat them by a touchdown or better. All right, number 7, A&M at number 16, Arkansas. Arkansas is a 5-point dog at home. C-Bus, who you got?
Yeah, I talked how good I think Arkansas Star is, but I'm gonna take A&M. Too much talent, defense too strong. I think it might be closer than experts think, but give me an A&M.
Coach Briggs, who you got?
I got A&M on that one too. They got too many dudes on the team, and they're going to come out there and dominate.
Medicis, who you got?
I thought A&M really struggled when their quarterback went out against Colorado and they had trouble scoring. I think Arkansas looked good. They have big game experience. I'm going to take Arkansas on the upset.
Jake, how about you?
I'm going A&M. Going off what Nick says, but they had another week with that quarterback, so can get wrinkles out. So iron those wrinkles out.
All right, I'm actually going with A&M too. I think since Haynes King was a starting quarterback that got hurt, they haven't had any offense since he went down the last couple of games. I know they got a ton of talent. If they can get that offense going defensively, they're good. But I like Arkansas. I do like them at home this week. Nebraska at Michigan State. Nebraska's getting 4.5 on the road. Medices, who you got?
Michigan State. I'm not sold on Scott Frost. If there's another team to panic, Nebraska might be that team. So definitely go Michigan State.
Jake, who you got?
I'll go Michigan State too. Scott Frost, like Nick said, he's on the hot seat, I believe. So I'll just go Michigan State.
Coach Briggs, who you got?
Michigan State all the way.
C-Bus, who you got?
Michigan State by 2 scores. Nebraska played probably the best game they're going to play all year against Oklahoma. Michigan State too much physical up front.
Yeah, I'm going to go Michigan State. Although I do say Nebraska showed some life last week against Oklahoma. They played their best game under Scott Frost in the last 2 years, but I just don't think they'll get it done against Michigan State. The primetime game this week, guys, is West Virginia at number 4 Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a 16.5-point favorite at home. C-Bus, who you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna take Oklahoma. I think 16.5 is a big number to lay. I thought West Virginia, played Va Tech tough. Obviously got the win there. Nice 4-down stop there inside the red zone or inside the 5. So I'm gonna take Oklahoma there, but I think it's gonna be close. I think you might see a different game. I just don't think West Virginia can score enough to hang with Oklahoma.
Coach Briggs, how about you?
I got Oklahoma by 10.
Oh, okay. Coach Medices.
I want to say that this West Virginia team coming off that big win against Virginia Tech is going to hang tight, but I've been waiting for this Oklahoma offense. Spencer Rattler, Heisman candidate, from the beginning of the year. I think Oklahoma finally comes out, plays a complete game, and I think they beat up on them this week.
Jake?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma's going to beat up on them. Oklahoma's, they got the next 3 games. West Virginia, then they got K-State, and then they got their rival. So they're going to have a pretty good stretch coming up. So now this is perfect time for Rattler to get going. Prime time.
You think Oklahoma's just been bored? They know they're better than certain teams. I mean, now you're going to get a West Virginia team that I think West Virginia is going to score a lot of points. This could be like a 48, 42, 40 to 30 something. I think 16.5 points is a lot of points in any game. I like West Virginia to cover, but I think Oklahoma, that offense finally gets going, and I think they win in the shootout.
Well, it'll be a good test to see if that Oklahoma defense is, we've heard that it's supposed to be better, right? So it might be a good chance for us to see, can they match up?
Medices, I had to throw it on there. Liberty at Syracuse. Cuse a 6-point dog at home. Who you got?
NFL scouts going to be there.
Yeah. Medices, who you got?
Listen, if Syracuse can run the ball and control the clock a little bit, I know it's foreign for Dino Babers and orange is the new fast, but if they can control the clock and run the ball with Sean Tucker and take care of the ball, Syracuse can win this game. I am actually going to go with Syracuse. I hate to say this, in an upset.
Oh, my God. Jake, how about you?
With the dome being renovated and the AC, it's not going to be the same with the heat there. I think Liberty, and he's going to run all over them and pass all over them. So Liberty up big.
Liberty. Coach Briggs, how about you?
The AC, he would have maybe cramped up. So.
I got to go with Syracuse. They got embarrassed last year. They're going to come back. They got some revenge to take place here. I got Syracuse by 7.
C-Bus, who you got?
Well, Syracuse just beat Big Albany right last week, so I'm sure they're flying high. I'm with Jake. I think Liberty's too much offensively. Syracuse makes a couple mistakes late in the second half, which cost them the game. Liberty by 4.
Guys, one for you. Would you think Hughes would be for USC if he wins?
I was just going to say, what about Hugh Freeze? There's another good name to think about. The job he's done at Liberty. Don't be surprised. Liberty hammers Syracuse this week by 2 touchdowns.
You were waiting
to
for
piss Nick off.
Yeah, you were waiting to get that one off since before the show started.
Wow.
All right, last one. Fordham at Stony Brook.
Big matchup.
C-Bus, who you got?
Oh, give me the Rams. Give me the Rams all day. I watched them a little bit. I think they're gonna play well. Get out of the way, Stony Brook. Rams all day by 7.
I like it. Coach Briggs, how about you?
Yeah, I know a Fordham alum, so I got to go with Fordham.
Go ahead, Medici. Stony Brook.
To quote someone that I know and used to respect, Stony Brook will hammer them.
Jake, how about you?
I'm going to go with, on Stony Brook, the Seawolves.
Yeah.
So I got to go with the Seawolves.
Stony Brook's really good, guys. Stony Brook's had a really good season the last couple of years. Fordham's played at Nebraska, at Florida Atlantic, and now they'll play a good Stony Brook team. I got to go with my alma mater, but I got Fordham to win the Patriot League, which they start next week, so we'll see what happens there. All right, guys, I got to give you the Piznats picks. Let me just see who he's got. So he has the Louisville, Florida State under, which is 62. The Boston College under, which is 58.5. Liberty Syracuse under, which is 53. He's got Florida Atlantic +5. And then he's got Indiana Western Kentucky, the over, which is 62.5. And he's got Notre Dame +7 in that one. So we'll have to see if he does any better on that. All right, guys, this is my favorite part of the show. So you guys know the drill. So Coach Briggs, what we do is these guys do their final parting shot here at the end. I put them up on the screen by themselves, and I give them their own time here for a minute or so. So I'm going to just kind of go around the horn and see what these guys got. See if Medicis has the Chanticleers on this one today. So let's see. Let's start with C-Bus Nick. Let me give you a shot here. Let me see if I can get you up.
Oh, you remembered me this week.
I remembered you. Yes.
I'm already impressed. So, I talked about the wild, wacky week 3, and I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the wild and wacky officials in week 3. I think for those of us that watched the Penn State-Auburn game, not only did they cost Penn State a down, but they also went to the replay booth who also had the down wrong. If you watched the Florida-Bama game, questionable calls galore. So the more I started to think about this, I really started to understand and wanted to investigate a little bit about why do we even have conference officials? Why are there Big Ten officials, Pac-12 officials, SEC officials? Why are there not just college football officials? Why do we have these segmented by conference? And I think when you really start to look at it, it opens up a lot of us questioning, especially in these non-conference games, are these officials biased to a degree to protect their conference? Any road game that goes non-conference game, that opposing or that conference officials is what officiates that game, which I think, okay, if that strategy was sound, I'm good with that. However, when you get to the college football playoff, they mandate that if it's a Pac-12 school and a Big Ten school playing, then it cannot be either one of those officiating crews that are representing to call that game. It has to be an SEC officiating crew or a Big 12 officiating school. So I think it's time. We're looking at $1 billion industry in college football. It's beyond time for us to have a streamlined process. Let's get a board of governors in there. Let's get a unified official set. Let's start to streamline these officials, hold them accountable, and let's eliminate this guessing game where we're saying, oh, we got a Pac-12 crew or a Big 12 crew calling this game. It's time that they start to invest some money to making sure that these officials are calling the games correctly.
All right, I didn't forget you that time, Nick. You should be proud of me, man. All right, let's go, Jake. Let's put you up on. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm actually not going to talk about college football. I'm talk about, a couple of instances that's not just in Rome, but other places. Some of the instances that happen in the Pop Warner games, with parents and everything. And it's definitely frustrating. You see all the videos, and it's all across America too. But, officials being attacked by parents at Pop Warner. They're 10, 8 years old, 12-year-old kids, and you see it at the high school level too. These are important things in these kids' life, playing sports and everything. And it just stinks seeing that parents are starting to ruin it. And you're going to probably start seeing some stuff coming down that it might not be. Kids might just be playing by themselves against another team and no fans in the stands because we can't get enough officials, or we have a bad apple here and there that ruins it for everyone. So it's just, let the kids play. People are going to make mistakes. Coaches, officials, players, that's how you learn from it. And being a coach, we hear it, the kids hear it, officials hear it. Just, enjoy watching your kids, coach them at home. That's fine. But, let them live in the moment and not having to look over their shoulders and seeing mom and dad, God forbid, run on the field, or brother or sister run out there. That's devastating to a Pop Warner program, and even to that kid himself.
Yeah, and when last year at one of my son's flag football games, and Coach Briggs, I know you had your kids came up through as well, but there was a fight at a flag football game because the parent came on the field and was arguing with the coach on the other team. It was us against one of the CVA teams. They were arguing with the other coach saying, how come their kid wasn't running the football? And I'm like, you guys got to be kidding me. These kids are 7 and 8 years old. We're trying to teach them the basics. So, Jake, I can't agree with you more, man. That's a good point. Medisas, give me the Chanticleers.
All right, so my teal shirt is not in. It will be in for the next show.
Right.
But I do want to talk some Coastal Carolina real quick. And to quote one of your favorite other teams, Gonzaga and Gus Johnson, the slipper still fits.
Yes.
All right? But without an NCAA tournament, a true tournament, small schools like Coastal Carolina aren't able to challenge themselves against the better schools, the Power Five. And to talk about your Gonzaga Bulldogs, how many years did it take for them to get beat in the second round, the third round, the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament, to have people come up to you and say, Gonzaga's conference stinks. Gonzaga doesn't play anyone. They're a small school. Well, if there's a tournament at the end of the year, it gives those small schools a chance to compete against those Power Five, those big schools. And then sure enough, 19 years later, they're playing for a national championship. We have to expand this playoff. We're starting to get the pieces. We've talked about a 12-team playoff, and then everyone on the committee decides not to fly to Chicago because it's all about the money. We have to do what's right for college football. We have to expand this playoff. We have to make it about the kids and not the money.
And that was a topic for tonight that we'll have to push. But Medisas, I don't know if you saw, and I'm running out of time, but the Zags are going to put together a team for the TBT next year.
The alumni team.
And I saw some of the names, and all I'll say is Boeheim's Army, watch out for the Zags next year in the TBT. All right, Coach Briggs, what do you got? You got anything good for us today?
I kind of agree with what Jake kind of talked about. I really didn't do my homework on this one, I'll be honest. But, just looking at officials, they're short with officiating this year. A lot of games are getting changed to Saturdays. I'm one of the guys, too, once in a while I can be hard on the officials, which I don't agree with. And, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I started, ranting on one official, and then automatically I gave up. I said, you know what? They're short officials. This guy can't see everything on the field. They can't. And I think you need to give them a break. You need to give them a chance. And they do a great job. And I appreciate what they do for high school football in this area. And we need more officials in this area. So anything they do is very appreciative. And, some of these coaches are jerks. Some of these parents are jerks. And we just need to move on and let the kids play.
Yeah, and I even heard, too, when Coach Briggs and Jake, you guys would probably know better than all of us, but they moved a lot of games from some Friday night games to Saturday just because there wasn't enough officials, right? The scheduling?
Yeah, we're playing next Saturday, actually. Our homecoming game got moved from Friday night to Saturday night.
Sheepers.
Yeah. Yep. And the thing is, it's not just varsity games, too. It's you see JV, modified games pushed around, and you got some JVs playing on Monday, Tuesday, which just kind of messes up a lot of things. And same with modifieds, and it's just trying to find spots for all these guys to play games.
All right, my part. I guess I should put my name up here first. Let's see here. All right, I've already talked about it, man. I've been riding Dion Sanders. I don't know why, but I'm riding Dion at Jackson State. This is a team when he came in was at the bottom of the barrel, and it's an all-black college. But he's bringing in 4- and 5-star recruits, including both his kids, both his sons that can play there. His kids just got Dr. Dre. They just got, what is it, the Beats guys? They both got big-time deals at a small school. and he's 55th in the nation coming in with recruiting, which is huge. And the other thing is his games have been televised on ESPN, ESPN2, and I know Nick says, what has he really done? Well, he started off 3-0 in the spring. They ended up at 3-3. He's off to a 2-1 start this year. And I'll say it again, if I'm Florida State, just off of the name and the recruits that he would bring in, he'd put 70, 80,000 people in Tallahassee for games. Call Dion Sanders, give him a chance. I think he brings in a lot of big-time coaches, and I think he's going to get his opportunity because I really believe at the end of this year, Mike Norvell is going to be out at Florida State, and I think Dion Sanders will finally get his chance to coach big-time college football. Coach Briggs, what'd you think? What'd you think of the show?
It was a lot of fun. I appreciate you asking me to come on. It was great listening to everybody, and I had a lot of fun.
Well, I'm glad. We're happy to have you on, and you're more than welcome to come on again. We'll probably shoot another one out sometime mid-October. I'll let you guys know, and you're more than welcome to come on. But I appreciate you guys tonight.
Thanks, Rock.
Thanks, Rock.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you. So that was tonight's No Huddle podcast. It was great to have the guys on. I want to make sure I thank them all. Thank Coach Briggs for coming on as well. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll run it back here in probably a couple of weeks, mid-October. If you're looking and you can help sponsor a show, just reach out to me, and I'll make sure I play the playbacks. The Mohawk Valley Sports Watch Saturday morning should be a go from 9 to 11. The RFA game this week will be broadcasted live on WKAL 1450. I'll go live at 6:15 with the pregame, and then we'll go live at 6:30 for RFA and Proctor. So on behalf of the entire crew here tonight, hopefully everybody enjoyed it. We appreciate it. Have a good evening,